Today I'm cooking up a picnic, complete with picnic chicken. That's just chicken that tastes good cold or at room temperature, along with a tortellini salad, complete with cherry tomatoes and some arugula. And last but definitely not least, a Pimm's cup, which if you've never had it is very refreshing on a hot day. Now to get started, we're gonna focus on the chicken because it takes the longest to prepare. And picnic chicken, well, it means a lot of different things to different people. And this recipe was developed 15 years ago by a friend and colleague named Sarah. And in fact, whenever we make it, we just call it Sarah's chicken because we make it a lot during the summer. And her challenge was to make a chicken that tasted good straight from the fridge or at room temperature. What Sarah did is she made a spice mixture with a lot of spices and a little brown sugar and then roasts the chicken so that it has a lot of flavor and that little bit of sugar caramelizes so it has a little bit of crunch even when it's cold. So to get started, we're gonna make the spice rub. And I mentioned sugar. We're going to use brown sugar, about 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. And to get a tablespoon, I'm really just using the bag to help press the brown sugar into the measuring spoon. That way it's a nice packed spoonful. Next step, chili powder. We're going to use 2 tablespoons of a chili powder. And chili powders are just a mix of spices and herbs, so choose one that you like a lot. This happens to be my favorite. A little paprika, which adds a whole lot of color and a little bit of a sweet flavor. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of paprika. There we go. Next up, salt. We're going to use kosher salt and 2 tablespoons of that. The salt plays an important role, not just for flavoring the chicken, but for helping that chicken stay juicy even when it's cold. Some black pepper is next, about 2 teaspoons of that. Last but not least, cayenne. Now, how much cayenne you add is really up to you. The recipe calls for a range of cayenne, and over the years, I found that backing down on the cayenne, even though I like spicy food, is better because this makes a lot and you're gonna serve a lot of people, and not everybody likes spicy food. All right, so into a bowl this goes, and this is where you gotta use your fingers, get in there, and break up that brown sugar and make sure it's evenly distributed. You gotta need a bigger bowl for this than you think. You think you could use a little spice bowl, but you have to have a big enough bowl to get your fingers in there so you don't make too much of a mess. Oh, all right, setting that aside for now. So this recipe calls for 5 pounds of bone-in chicken, and you can use whatever cut of chicken you like. If you wanna do all breasts, go for it. All drums would be fun. I love the thighs, but it calls for 5 pounds, and given that it makes so much, I like doing a range of pieces so that everyone gets what they want. And the only thing you really need to do is if you have these split breasts, is cut them in half so they're the similar size of the thighs and the drumsticks. Now I said we have to cut it in half. I don't mean literally in half, because if I did that, you'd have a really dinky piece on this side and a really big piece over here. So I'm gonna cheat it on the thicker side. It's really 1/3, 2/3. There, looks good. Right through. And notice I have this handy cutting pad. I love these things, especially if you're just doing a little bit of butchering and you don't want to get your whole board dirty. This is an easy way to keep things clean and sanitary. And then this flat board can just go right into the dishwasher. So a big fan of those. There's the 3rd breasts. All right. Now, in terms of prep, the one thing that is really important is we're going to slash the skin in just a couple places. This helps the fat render during roasting so it gets good and crisp and it doesn't get flabby, because flabby cold skin on chicken is horrible. So all you do is take a sharp knife, take the very tip. You just want to make 1 or 2 slashes through the skin, not through the meat, just through the skin, just like that. And if you see any fatty pockets, like this looks pretty fatty, that's really where you want to focus the knife. All right, and there we go. So now it's time to put the spice rub on the chicken, and notice I'm using a nice deep sheet pan. It's the size of a regular rimmed sheet pan, but the sides are taller. That just helps contain the mess. And this sheet pan was actually a gift from my dear friend Greer, and it is a lovely gift. All right. So what you want to do is you want to sprinkle the spices over it. You want to peel back the skin on each piece and really get it onto the meat, because that's how you're going to flavor the meat. So see, peel back, expose the meat, and then put the skin back. On the drumsticks, I actually just peel them all back and then sprinkle them. Put the skin back in place. This is pretty much the hardest part of the recipe. It's not hard, it's just a little messy. I kind of think making a mess is fun, so it's all good with me. All right, so now I'm gonna flip them all over, get the back side. Spices everywhere. So now I'm gonna start transferring the chicken to a wire rack set over a rimmed baking sheet that's lined with foil. Now this pan over here is actually where we're gonna roast the chicken on. So you're just getting it ready for the oven. All right, so here are the breasts. Now the one thing we found over the years is that the skin on the breast meat tends to shrink in the oven. So one trick that you can do to help it stay in place while you roast it is to pin it in place with toothpicks. I know this is going a bit far, but it doesn't take that much time and it really does help. So just stretching the skin back out over the spices that you rubbed underneath, put some toothpicks in it, and there you go. I also like to put the pieces that have the thin tail part right in the middle where they just get a bit more protected from the oven heat because those are going to cook through pretty quickly compared to everything else. All right, those are the last pieces of chicken. Put them in the center, put this nice big one on the outside. All right, and that's it for prep. Now the thing is you have to let the chicken sit with those spices for at least 6 hours. But as I said, I usually do it the day before and just let it sit overnight in the fridge. And we're not gonna cover it in the fridge. You're gonna leave it open. That air dries the skin again so that it renders better and gets more crisp. So I'm gonna get cleaned up, pop this in the fridge, and next up, we're gonna make the Pimm's cup.
Love our in-depth reviews? Get the latest from our reviews team delivered straight to your inbox. Our well-equipped cook newsletter provides top product picks, no-nonsense buying guides, and must-try recipes. No extra fluff, just the smartest ways to shop, save, and cook. Sign up for free now at americastestkitchen.com/newsletter.
Now it's time to make a Pimm's cup. And if you've never had it, it is a lovely, refreshing cocktail, perfect for a hot summer day. Not super strong, and it is officially the cocktail of Wimbledon. So it's very mild-mannered. And it's all based on Pimm's, Pimm's #1. Now this was a health tonic invented by a man named James Pimm back in the mid-19th century. And #1 because he made this tonic based on gin. He also had Pimm's #2, #3, #4, #5, and #6. They're all based on different alcohol bases, but this is the most popular one based on gin, and it has a lovely floral quality. And you mix it with a variety of things to make a Pimm's cup. Now, Pimm's cup can be made with lots of things. I was first introduced to it again by my dear friend Greer, who mixed it with ginger ale, and I love that. I've also seen it mixed with a lemon lime soda. In New Orleans, they mix it with lemonade and seltzer. But this is more of a classic Pimm's cup, and I'm not using any soda. I'm gonna use simple syrup and some fresh lemon juice along with cucumber, which is a traditional flavor. And to get started, we're gonna slice up a cucumber. This is an English cucumber because you have to stay English. And I'm gonna slice it up. Half the slices are going into the drink to help flavor it. The other half are just gonna be garnishes. So I'm just gonna go down and slice this cucumber nice and thinly. I washed it, obviously. All right. So half of these will be garnish. Let's see, the first half will be garnish. We'll set those aside for later. And the second half are gonna go right into the pitcher where we're gonna build the Pimm's cup. Note about this pitcher. I bought this pitcher on purpose off of eBay because it matches the glasses that I will use, and the glasses were my grandmother's. And so I love the glasses so much, I wanted to have the complete set. So I love bringing this out in the summertime and thinking of her. All right, so I'm gonna set this aside. Next up, the lemons. We're gonna use lemon slices and fresh lemon juice. So I'm first gonna slice up a lemon and put that right into the pitcher. There we go. Into the pitcher it goes. Next up, we're gonna make a whole bunch of lemon juice. We're gonna make about 9 ounces of lemon juice, which is a cup and 2 tablespoons to be accurate. And the recipe I'm using actually was based on 20 ounces of Pimm's, but a Pimm's bottle is 26 ounces. And if I'm opening a bottle of Pimm's, I'm opening a bottle of Pimm's, so I'm gonna use the whole thing. So I've scaled the recipe up for the whole bottle. All right, so to make a cup of lemon juice, which is a lot, I'm gonna need at least 5 or 6 lemons. And of course, if I'm juicing 5 or 6 lemons, bringing out the juicer. I only bring this out when I'm making Pimm's cup, margaritas, and lemonade. Well, we're gonna need this last lemon after all. Lemons aren't very juicy. Maybe a few more. All right, that looks pretty good. You see there's a little measurement on this side that I'm looking at. And it's just under 10 ounces. I'm looking for 9 ounces. So that's right on. All right. Gonna add this right to the pitcher, but I'm first gonna strain it just to make sure we caught any of those seeds that might have made their way through. I don't see, oh, there is a seed. I'm just gonna go in and get out those seeds that I don't want. There we go. You. Oh, the rest is good. All right. So that's the lemon juice. Next up, we're gonna add some simple syrup. Need about 10 ounces of simple syrup. This simple syrup, or at least how I make it, is roughly equal parts sugar to water. Some simple syrups are a bit thicker than that, but I like 1 to 1. And that also means you don't have to boil it. I just use boiling water from the kettle and the sugar, and I whisk it together into a bowl until it's dissolved. So it's also a lot easier. So 10 ounces, I'm gonna use a Pyrex here. This Pyrex is pretty old. The numbers are almost gone, but it was my Oma's. And since we're using her cocktail glasses today, nice to pull out the old Pyrex. I can't seem to get rid of it, even though the numbers are nearly gone. There we go, 10 ounces, perfect. I keep this in the fridge almost all summer long. It's just a nice way to make a single glass of iced tea or iced coffee or lemonade. All right, 10 ounces of simple syrup. All right, now we're gonna add some mint, about 1/2 cup of chopped mint. Save some of this mint for a garnish. Pull off the leaves. You want to chop it pretty finely, but you don't want to make grass clippings. Somewhere in the middle of grass clippings, what I call grass clippings, which is an over chopped herb, and a coarse chop. And again, you want about 1/2 cup. All right. Get any of those stems out of there. Sometimes I think the stems taste a bit bitter on mint, so getting any of the stems out so we just have the leaves, giving it a good chop. And this is going to stay in the mixture. So you want the pieces to be small enough that they'll fit in the glass. A big piece won't land on your tongue, but not so small that they really muddy the drink. Somewhere in the middle. All right, that's pretty good. Into the pitcher they go. All right, last but definitely not least, the Pimm's. The whole bottle. It's a good looking pitcher right here. Right to the top. Ah, et voila. That is how I make a Pimm's cup. Now the trick is, you have to let this sit for a few hours, at least 4 hours. Sometimes I even do it a day ahead. And let all those flavors marry, and then when we'll serve it with club soda to lighten it up a bit. All right. That's the Pimm's cup. Gonna pop this in the fridge, and next up we can roast the chicken and make the tortellini salad. The chicken is ready for the oven. It's been sitting with the spices for a while. And again, I'm just gonna leave it as it is on the rack on the sheet pan. I'm gonna make sure there's a little bit of air between each of the pieces. That way, the hot air of the oven will more easily get to each piece. And I'm protecting those pointed parts of the breast by putting them in the middle of the sheet pan. Big pieces of the breast on this side, drumsticks on the end. So we're gonna start this at a lower oven temperature, 425, on the middle rack for 15 to 30 minutes, depending on all the variables. And we're gonna roast it until the smallest piece registers 140 degrees. Now that's not cooked yet, but that's gonna be the indicator that it's time to crank the oven to 500, really get a crisp chicken skin and finish cooking the chicken through. And then that finishing time really varies depending on the piece of chicken. So at the very end, I'm gonna be very careful and temp each piece of chicken to take it out of the oven at just the right time, because that's how you know your chicken will be juicy when it's cold. All right, so into a 425-degree oven. All right, set the timer, because this is not a steel trap anymore, like it ever was. All right, so while the chicken is in the oven, we're gonna make the tortellini salad, starting with tortellini. So we're gonna use a cheese tortellini, and you need about a pound to make a nice big salad. I found that they now come in 20-ounce packages, which also works here. And I have some water boiling back here. Nice big pot of 4 quarts of water. I'm gonna add a good amount of salt, about a tablespoon of salt. Let's see, cut this package open. And into the hot water it goes. Nice. Now these cook pretty quickly. They take about 7 minutes, and I also always start a timer for those. Yes, my timer can handle 2 things at once. It's a great timer. All right, give these a stir. So while that tortellini is boiling away, we're gonna make the dressing for the salad, starting with a small shallot. I'm just gonna mince the shallot up. That way it incorporates really nicely into the dressing. Oh, you know what? I forgot to put the pine nuts on the stove, because we're gonna add some toasted pine nuts to this salad, which add a lovely flavor. I always forget about the pine nuts. So we're gonna toast them in a skillet. You want about 1/4 cup of pine nuts. And to toast them, I forget about pine nuts all the time. I especially forget about them when I'm toasting them, because they burn like that if you're not watching. And the fastest nut in the West to burn. So what I've learned over the years is to put it on a low heat, put it on the front of the burner, and just shake them all the time. But the low heat, I can't tell you, has saved me more than once. All right, so pine nuts are toasting. Now we'll return our attention to the shallot. Just gonna mince this up nice and fine for a dressing. And to mince a shallot, you really just mince it like an onion, cutting it crosswise and vertically, and then finally going down through the layers to make a nice fine mince. A lot of people I know like to use a smaller knife when mincing a shallot, because they just find it's easier to maneuver around a small vegetable. So that's a good tip too if you're having trouble mincing a shallot. All right, now run the knife back through just to make sure all the pieces are nice and finely chopped. All right, I'm gonna build this in the nice big bowl that we're actually gonna keep the salad in. Less dishes to wash. All right, so we're gonna add a little bit of lemon juice, about 3 tablespoons or so. Pine nuts. Phew, they're good because I'm using low heat. It's not unusual to hear someone in the kitchen yelling pine nuts, because everyone always burns the pine nuts. And so it's always a good reminder, especially in my kitchen. Pine nuts. All right, now we're gonna add some cherry tomatoes. We're gonna add this to the salad early on because we want them to release their juices and help flavor the vinaigrette. You just wanna cut these in half. And because they're grape tomatoes, well, let's see. You know, grape tomatoes usually don't work well with my trick, which is for cherry tomatoes, but cutting them in half is a real pain. Let's see. You're a bit big. Taking 2 lids, putting half the tomatoes on one lid, half on the other side, slicing through. Oh, it works just fine. All right. It's a good trick, huh? Works for grapes and olives too. Sometimes if the grape tomatoes are really elongated, it doesn't work so well, but these are a round group of tomatoes. All right, into the bowl they go. Now I'm gonna add 1 clove of garlic, I'm gonna use raw garlic here. I like a little bit of a sharp bite, and we're making so much salad that 1 clove really isn't a lot. I'm gonna use a rasp grater. Again, because I like how the fine puree of this fresh garlic really works its way into the dressing. Makes it nice and even, and there's no big hits of garlic that'll hit your tongue. A little goes a long way when you're adding pureed garlic, because the more you chop garlic, the more garlic flavor you release. So when you're using pureed, just use a small amount. I'm gonna add some salt and pepper. Pretty obvious. Gonna add some olive oil, about 6 tablespoons or thereabouts of olive oil, also known as a good glug. That looks good. Last but not least, some basil. I'm gonna add a hefty amount of basil, about 1/2 cup chopped thereabouts. I overdo it on the basil because I like basil. If you're gonna do basil, do basil. We used to grow tons of basil as a kid. We have a garden full of it. And then in the August, we would sit there and we'd spend a whole day, my mother and I, making pesto for the freezer. And in the winter, it was so nice when we were having pesto with spaghetti, because I could run down to the freezer and pull out some pesto we'd made earlier in the summer. And it just reminded you, even while the snow's on the ground, what summer was like. I'm gonna give this a rough chop. I like big pieces of basil in the salad, so it doesn't need to be too fine. All right, that looks pretty good. Add that in there. Add it all in there. It's way more than 1/2 cup, but I don't care. I like a basil-y pasta salad. That tortellini should be done cooking. Pine nuts. Oh, that got close. You can see some of them are a little on the toasty side. I actually don't mind the little toasty ones. If they're a little bit sort of on the darker side, tastes like popcorn. The rest of them look pretty good. So I might have to pick through and pick out some of the darker ones. Woo! All right, into a bowl these go. Every time. Pine nuts are my nemesis. All right, pine nuts are off. Whew. All right, so into the dressing, the hot tortellini goes. Now, I've seen a lot of recipes that rinse the tortellini with cool water before adding it to the vinaigrette. Adding the tortellini to the dressing while it's hot really just helps it absorb all those flavors. And adding the basil in there too, the warmth brings out the fragrance of the basil and starts to wilt those cherry tomatoes ever so slightly. So in the end, it's a slightly softer cherry tomato, but they've released all their juices into the vinaigrette. All right, oh, this is one of my favorite salads. That's it for this pasta salad. We're gonna add the pine nuts and some Parmesan and then arugula just before serving. But this we're gonna put into the refrigerator to chill down. So while this salad is chilling in the refrigerator, I'm gonna keep my attention on that chicken, because we're gonna crank up that oven to 500 degrees just for the last 10 or 15 minutes of cooking. And of course, I'm gonna temp each piece of chicken and take it out of the oven right when it's perfectly done.
Love what you're watching? Take your cooking to the next level with our Essential membership. Get instant access to thousands of recipes, tips, techniques, product reviews, and step-by-step videos. Our Members app allows you to search by ingredient, set dietary preferences, and save your favorite recipes. For those looking to level up, our newest feature, ATK Classes, offers more in-depth instruction led by ATK experts, so you can gain greater confidence in the kitchen. Start your free trial by visiting the App Store or going to americastestkitchen.com/YouTube today.
So everything's all done. The chicken has been taken out of the oven. And again, I took each piece out just as it finished cooking. And for white meat, that's 160 degrees. For dark meat, however, it's higher. It's 175 degrees. So each piece came out just as it's finished cooking. And then you let it rest to room temperature. And you can refrigerate this for up to a day. But eating at room temperature is perfect. So of course you have to remove the toothpicks, because no one wants to eat a toothpick. I know, we've all done it, right? Usually on saltimbocca. Oh, it's the worst. but it did its job really well. It held that chicken skin in place as the chicken cooked, so you get it nice and rendered. All right, so this chicken is ready for the platter. Now, when it comes to serving this chicken, because this is enough for a crowd, I'm gonna gussy up the plate a little bit, which is not my usual go-to. I usually don't gussy, but for this sort of thing, I'm all in. And I'm using this curly leaf kale, which will make a lot of people laugh if you've ever worked in a kitchen. This is your basic garnish. You put it on every platter ever known. You use all this kale just for garnishing. And when I worked at the health food spa when I was younger, I worked in the kitchen at Canyon Ranch in Berkshires, and I was in charge of the salad bar, where you have to prep all the vegetables, but you're also responsible for setting up the salad bar, which is in the dining room. So it's a customer-facing salad bar, and so I would have to garnish with all sorts of things. I went through boxes of kale garnish. All right, so what you want to do is make sure the curly parts of the kale are just hanging over the edge of the dish, and then I rip off the stems because they tend to get in the way, but I put them down in the middle because it acts like a nice bed that the chicken can rest on. It makes it a little higher, makes it look taller. So that's how you decorate a platter with kale. I know, my culinary friends are laughing at me right now. All right, so onto the platter the chicken goes. Oh, I love those charred bits where the sugar really caramelized, because that makes the chicken taste like it came off the grill. Oh, such good chicken. So there is a nice platter of chicken. Now we're gonna finish the tortellini salad. To finish it off, we're gonna add the pine nuts I toasted. Now we're also gonna add some Parmesan. I'm gonna grate the Parmesan right into the bowl. You want about half a cup, but I'm using the large holes on this box grater. So I like nice big shreds of Parmesan in this salad. That looks pretty good. Last but not least, a little bit of arugula. I'm gonna use baby arugula here because you don't need to chop it. I only want about a cup or two. Just gonna rip it up with my hands, add it to the bowl. Adding it at the end after the salad is chilled is important, or else that arugula will wilt and look like it sat in a hot car, and you don't want that. I'm gonna mix this all together in this work bowl, but then I'm gonna put it in a nice pretty bowl for serving, because, you know, I put kale on the platter, I might as well use a clean bowl for the salad. All right, oh yeah. I'm also gonna season it with just a little bit of salt and pepper. Now that I have the salad divided into two bowls, it's a little easier to mix. A little pepper. Okay. Oh, yeah. All right, that looks good. Let us not forget about the Pimms, which I have all ready to go on my grandmother's tray. So to make an actual Pimm's cocktail, you can do it in the pitcher and just serve out of the pitcher, but I like to make each Pimm's by the glass. These are my grandmother's glasses. I grew up drinking milk out of these, and I love that they're still around for cocktails. Now put some ice into a cup. I'm gonna put some of the Pimm's mixture. And now how much seltzer you add, well, that's up to you. If you want a strong Pimm's or a weaker Pimm's, there's no right or wrong answer here. Just want to use plain seltzer. Oh yeah, that's perfect. And the garnishes for a Pimm's cup are all over the place. Lemon, cucumber, and strawberry is also a traditional garnish on a Pimm's cup, but that just looks so nice and summery. Of course, a little sprig of mint on the top. That is a good Pimm's cup. Ah, perfect. Now time to make myself a little tasting plate. So to start off with some of the salad. This salad brings the house down every time I make it. Nice piece of chicken. I always go for the thighs. I also always go for the piece that has a little bit of that char on the outside because I love that flavor. It really tastes like summer on the grill, even though we did it in the oven. Oh, kitchen picnic. Think summery thoughts and enjoy the picnic food. The tortellini salad is so simple, so good. Just with fresh lemon juice, that little bit of arugula, all that basil, makes it taste like summer. Now for the real summer treat, the picnic chicken. It has so much flavor. All those spices really make it taste grilled in a way. And it's juicy. That's because we let it sit overnight with all that salt. That in a Pimm's cup. Oh, these flavors, I love them together. This is the perfect summer picnic. See you next time.
If you're ready to take your cooking to the next level, head over to americastestkitchen.com and get a free trial of our ATK Essential membership. While you're there, you can sign up for our free email newsletters and download our app. So, what are you waiting for?